Good morning. So we have been on a soul trek this year in 2014, and we began by welcoming change, by looking at all the different changes that can happen in our lives and staying on the forefront of those changes. In order to make changes, we also recognize that we need to release and let go and make room for the good that wants to come into our lives. We also packed our tools for our soul trek. And what are our tools? Our 5 unity principles, right? God is good, the Spirit of God indwells all beings, the law of mind action, prayer and meditation, and taking those teachings out into our lives, into our families, into our workplaces, and into the world. In May, we explored the divine feminine. In June, the divine masculine. And what we recognize is that regardless of our gender, we have both qualities within us. We have within every single person the divine masculine and the divine feminine. So women have the power to take that divine masculine energy and take action in the same way that men can use the divine feminine to lean on their intuition. So it goes beyond gender. So in July, we're going back to our backpacks. We're going back to our suitcases. We're looking in our tools again to see what we have and what we have not yet unpacked. And so what we're unpacking this month is meditation and loving kindness and compassion. So it's our 4th teaching, which is prayer and meditation, and the 5th, which is taking these teachings out into the world. So how do we take meditation out into the world? Well, one of the ways we take meditation out into the world is through service and is through loving kindness and compassion, through practicing that. So that is what I am calling us to this month. And part of it is also to be in alignment with the Buddha relics that are coming to us in July. How many of you remember when the Buddha relics were here like 3 years ago? And wow, quite a few. And it was in the chapel. This year, it'll be down in the fellowship hall. So those of you who weren't here, the energy was so powerful. It was, you just walked in there and you just felt centered and peaceful and calm. And their relics are from all the Buddhist saints from thousands of years, right, James? Including the Buddha himself, isn't that right? And it's the Dalai Lama who has put this on the road, if you will, has put the relics, and it's very unusual for one place to get them twice. The reason we're getting it twice is because we sponsored it the first time, and the Siddha Yoga Center that Siddha has is, and he uses the building here, is sponsoring it this time. So again, we look at meditation and bringing that principle into the world, because what it does when we meditate, when we practice spiritual principles, is it moves us beyond the 5 senses. It moves us beyond this dimension into the 4th and 5th dimensions, where magical things can happen, where we can become spiritual catalysts. In other words, where when we are present to one another, when we are present, things can happen that appear almost to be magical or at least synchronistic in our lives. One of our members shared with me a story about a year or 2 ago, and her name is Christine, and she said that I could use this story. And she had a very difficult time in her life. She had a great love in her life. And one of the gifts that he had given her was a bronze heart, and she lost it. And not only did she lose the heart, but she lost her relationship with him. It was over. She lost her home, and she was pretty much down and had lost everything. She was house sitting, and in the house there was an altar, a room that was sort of dedicated to Mother Mary, was this whole altar. And so she began to play music. She was practicing the harp, and so she began to play, and her prayer was that her heart be mended. Her prayer was that Mother Mary would come through her and would take this experience that she was having and transform it into something good. And she said she would pray and she would cry and she would sing and she would do her prayers. And then she had to go to work. You know how that is when you're doing your thing and it's like, okay, now I got to get out into the world and I got to go to work. So she goes to work, and she said this woman that she had never seen before walked up to her and she said, I have something for you. And she said, well, what is it? And she said, I'm a jeweler. And she put it in her hand, and it was a bronze heart. And not only was it a bronze heart, but it had been broken and it had been repaired. It wasn't the same heart she had, but it was a different one. And this woman put it in her hand, and she said, this is for you. I'm a jeweler. And she did it in a very light, kind of happy way. And as Christine is standing there, this woman was walking away, and she said, wait a minute, what is your name? And her name was Mary. Now, we can look at those things and we can say, well, yeah, coincidence, but, those are some of the ways that I think Spirit directs us. It's like we get little arrows that are pointing us in the right direction, because her prayer was, may I take this experience of brokenness that I'm having right now, and may it be transformed into something good. And it was as if, or that Goddess Mary herself had given her this heart to say, you will be healed. You will be transformed. Something good will come out of this situation. There's a new book out called Use Your Mind to Change Your Brain. And it's a lot like the book that we've been using in our home study group, which is How God Changes Your Brain. It's scientists looking at how the brain operates and what meditation specifically does for the brain. This is by Rebecca Gladding. And what she says in her book is that, about meditation, she says that sitting every day makes a huge difference in how you approach life, how personally you take things, and then how you interact with others. It enhances compassion, it allows you to see things more clearly, and creates a sense of calm and centeredness that is indescribable. There is no substitute. She said if you meditate on a regular basis, several positive things happen. First, the strong, tightly held connection between the me center. There's a center of our brain that she calls the me center, and the me center is, it's about me. So we're meditating, and every ache and pain we feel, we go, oh my God, this must be the end. I'm feeling it. Or a thought goes through, and it's like, what did so-and-so think of me? Or why did I say that to so-and-so? And our minds go off in 50 million different directions. And it's called the me center. And what she says is that through prayer and meditation, it changes the connection that we have to the me center, and it moves almost, she doesn't call it this, but moves to the we center, where we're able to feel a body sensation and go, guess what? That was a body sensation. Or we have an emotion or a feeling or a thought, and we go, oh yeah, that's a feeling and that's a thought, and I can let that go. And there's a sense of bigness. There's a sense of encompassing of the whole. And she goes into all this detail and divides the brain up into all these different categories that you can read and analyze with her. But what she's describing is probably what the Buddhists and the Hindus would call non-attachment, right? I mean, we're always hearing about non-attachment. And sometimes the word non-attachment gets a bad rap because it feels like we don't care. And that's not it. It's non-attachment in the idea of just being able to witness what's happening, but at the same time having compassion and empathy for ourselves and for everyone else who is around us. Bless you. It is what Rumi said when Rumi said, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field, and I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. So out beyond the idea of right and wrong, there's a field, and I'll meet you there. This is the idea of letting go of the me center and moving to the we center, to bringing compassion into our lives. So once we have a practice of meditation, and we're expanding, we're in our we center, then what do we do with that? So that's one of the tools that we have unpacked, right, from our bag, is meditation. But then the other tool that we need to unpack is getting out in the world and actually doing something with what we have gained. And we would call that selfless service, or we would call that karma yoga. Now, the interesting thing about serving is that all the religions in the world have talked about this idea of doing good works, right? Of doing good deeds, of doing service. Jesus said it when he was washing the feet of the disciples on the night before he was crucified. You know, and of course on that night, remember, the disciples are thinking that Jesus is going to take over Jerusalem, and, you know, they're going to be in power. And so they're starting to vie each other because they all want to be the right-hand man here. And Jesus does something that is considered drastic at the time, and that is he gets on his knees and he washes the feet of the disciples. He starts to wash their feet one by one. And of course, you know the story where Peter's like, no thanks, I'm not going to let you do that for me. And Jesus says, if you're not going to let me wash your feet, then I don't want any part of you. And he said, okay, wash my hair too, just give me a bath, I'll take it all. So when he's finished washing the feet of the disciples, he stands up and he says, do you know what I've done? Do you know what I have done? That as I have done this for you, in other words, you call me rabbi and teacher. And he said, yes, I'm rabbi and teacher, but I can humble myself before each one of you. He can get down on his knees and he can wash the feet of each member of the disciples. And he says, if I have done this for you, then you can do it for each other. Love one another as I have loved you. That's the idea of service. It's about humbling oneself to surrender and to practice loving kindness and compassion in action. Now, in Hinduism, this would be called karma yoga. And karma yoga means the yoga of action. In other words, taking ordinary actions and using them as a way of waking up. So karma yoga is not simply doing service and volunteering, but it's the attitude with which we enter into it. We enter into it with humbleness like Jesus, and service and loving kindness and compassion. And then the yogis will tell us that karma yoga then becomes a path of enlightenment. And it doesn't even matter what the task is that we are doing. We could be playing the piano. We could be sweeping the floor, passing out programs, taking care of our children, cooking a meal. Every action that we take can be an act of loving kindness and compassion. Alan Reeder wrote an article called Do Yoga and Do Good. In yoga, service is not just a spiritual obligation or the righteous thing to do. It is also a path to self-realization. So imagine when you're driving your car and you're doing your duties and just doing all those mundane things that you're like, I got to get through this. Imagine if it was a prayer. Imagine if it was instead a path to self-realization. Ram Dass said it this way. He said that when he is volunteering, he used to be a hospice volunteer, and he said he would attempt, when he would step in to see a patient, to meet them soul to soul. And he said, I wait until my soul takes over, my spiritual self, my witness to my incarnation. And then I walk in. I don't see an AIDS patient. I see a soul. And I say something like, hey, how's your incarnation going? Right? So it's that stepping into the soul first and then moving into our action, into our selfless service, into our karma yoga. Now, I know we have so many karma yogis around here. Barbara Thorpe and Dirk and Johnny and all the Dios members and our Earth Care Ministry, Jeffrey, Kelly, I could go on and on and on, because just about everybody here, Tom in leading the SUV team, there's so many of us here are always giving, right? We're giving and we're serving. Jan and Joan with the Earth Care Ministry. And yet, I wonder if we can but consciously together move into the soul to soul, that when I am serving, whether it be through volunteering or cooking a meal at home or whatever, it's with the Spirit of God moving through me. So that's the tools that we are unpacking today. We are unpacking the tool of prayer and meditation, and we are unpacking the tool of bringing it out into the world through service. So, since we are unpacking, I would like for us to just practice a little of the loving kindness. Now, you all know the loving kindness prayer, and if you don't, it's on the front of the bulletin. But before we do that, I would like for us to open our hearts with a practice that is called mudita in Buddhism, in the Buddhist tradition. And mudita is about wanting the best for our loved ones. It's about wanting the best for our friends and our families. Instead of when someone says, hey, this happened to me, and going, oh, geez, I wish it had happened to me too. It's like, not only am I happy this happened for you, but I want more to happen for you, more good to happen in your life. So I would like you for a moment just to think about someone that you may feel a little bit envious of. And maybe you don't feel envious of anybody, and that's so great. That's wonderful. You can teach the rest of us. So if there is anybody that you feel envious of their success, and maybe it's a public figure, maybe it's not even anybody that you know, I want you to bring that person into your heart and hold what that success is. And if you're not feeling that, then just think of someone who's had some good fortune in their life recently. Someone very close to you. And when you get that, I'd like you to touch your heart so I know that you've found that person. And I'd like you to imagine that person in your heart and in front of you. And our prayer is, may your happiness and good fortune continue. Let's say that together. May your happiness and good fortune continue. Now I want you to think of somebody else. Someone else you know who's had some good fortune just happen in their lives. And we hold that person. And we say, may your happiness and good fortune continue. Let's say that. May your happiness and good fortune continue. And from here, we move to the loving kindness prayer. And it is in the bulletin if you don't know it, but we begin with ourselves. May I be free from danger. May I have mental happiness. May I have physical happiness. May I have ease of well-being. I want you to think of someone that you especially love, easily love, as we use the pronoun you. May you be free from danger. May you have mental happiness. May you have physical happiness. May you have ease of well-being. And then here's where the challenge steps in. How about someone that you're having a conflict with currently? Again, if you know one in your life, make it a public figure. Find that person. Pronoun you. May you be free from danger. May you have mental happiness. May you have physical happiness. May you have ease of well-being. And now we include all beings in this prayer. May all beings be free from danger. May all beings have mental happiness. May all beings have physical happiness. May all beings have ease of well-being. So what we have done this morning is we have unpacked the tools of prayer and meditation. We have unpacked the tools so that we can bring them out into the world. And we do that through service. We do that through loving kindness prayers. We do that through compassion. And when we allow ourselves to enter into this realm of spiritual principle, we move beyond the third dimension into the fourth and fifth, where interesting things can happen, where we may feel like we have a broken heart that's totally lost, and then somebody comes out of the blue and says, "Here, this is for you. This is exactly what you need." Meditation can move us from the me center to the we center, and it becomes a path of enlightenment, as does the karma yoga. So again, as we continue this month of July, we're going to continue to unpack these principles. So may your meditations be deep, and may your meditations be frequent. Amen.